Emma had been in a relationship with Jason White for 7 years. Jason, the golden boy from their small town, had earned a PhD and become a chief physician at a top-tier hospital. Emma admired his accomplishments, especially given his upbringing in a single-parent household. They had always agreed not to live with his mother after marriage.
Jason, we're finally discussing our wedding plans. It's so exciting.
I know, Emma. I've brought my mother from the countryside to talk about the details.
Emma had gone to the airport early in the morning, only to learn from Jason that his mother had taken the train instead. Confused but determined, she took a taxi to the train station. Jason's mother, wearing a slightly worn floral jacket and dragging a large bag, greeted Emma with a grumble.
Why did you take so long? So lazy.
Ma'am, I had booked a plane ticket for you.
Before Emma could finish, Jason's mother slapped her arm, leaving it red and swollen.
Ma'am, you
worthless girl, wasting money. Plane tickets are expensive, and you're spending my son's money.
I used my own salary.
Shameless! Your salary is my son's money. How dare you waste it?
Emma was about to argue back when Jason's mother sat down on the ground, crying and shouting.
Oh, what a misfortune. The daughter-in-law is hitting me.
A crowd gathered, and Emma's face burned with embarrassment. She hurriedly helped Jason's mother up and led her out of the station. Jason's mother dumped her heavy bags on Emma and pushed her to the ground.
You worthless girl! Who told you to waste my son's money on a car ride? I'll teach you a lesson.
Emma pushed her away, but the relentless woman repeated her act, crying loudly. The driver, unable to bear it, waived the fare and drove them to the apartment Jason and Emma rented. Jason's mother wanted Emma to carry all the bags up 25 flights of stairs. The neighbors intervened, and reluctantly, she let Emma use the elevator. Emma decided she would never live with her in the future.
Jason, look at my arm. Your mother hit me, and you expect me to tolerate this?
My mom raised me alone. If she wasn't frugal and tough, how could I have grown up? Emma, can you stop being so spoiled? She's old. Can't you just tolerate her a bit?
Jason, explain yourself.
Jason opened the bedroom door and walked out. Furious, Emma called her best friend.
Samantha, you won't believe what happened.
Let's go confront them right now.
They stayed out until midnight. When Emma returned home, the house was dark and messy.
Jason knocks on door.
There was no response. Jason's mother came out, annoyed, and slapped Emma across the face.
Are you trying to wake the dead? It's the middle of the night.
Before Emma could react, Jason's mother slammed the door shut and locked it. Emma was left outside, locked in the living room. Jason, explain yourself. Jason opened the bedroom door and walked out, seemingly unbothered. Furious, I grabbed my phone and dialed my best friend, Samantha Adams.
What's going on?
We went out for dinner, and I vented all my frustrations. Samantha, a fierce lawyer, was ready to storm into my house and confront Jason and his mother.
I can't believe he did that. Let's go over there right now.
No, Sam. It's late. Let's just stay out a bit longer. We stayed out until midnight. When I returned home, the house was dark. The kitchen sink was piled with dirty dishes, and an open jar of pickles on the table emitted a foul smell. Frowning, I went to get my pajamas only to find the bedroom door locked. Jason. I knocked on the door, but there was no response. When I knocked a second time, the door to the guest room opened.
Are you trying to wake the dead? It's the middle of the night.
She slapped me across the face. Before I could react, she slammed the door shut with a loud bang and locked it. In the home Jason and I shared, I was left outside, locked in the living room. Seeing the situation at a standstill, Tom Davis stepped forward.
Aunt Laura, we understand you're concerned about some relatives, but let's not cause a scene on such a joyous day. We all know you're doing this for the best, and we appreciate it.
This was giving her an out, but she didn't care.
You young girl, you've never been married, so you don't understand the intricacies. If he doesn't give the money, it means he doesn't value the bride.
With that, she pulled out her phone and opened a payment app, trying to slide the phone under the door. This maneuver was something I had never seen, despite my years of dealing with various situations. Fortunately, Tom Davis quickly thought on his feet and shouted,
"Hurry up and transfer 8888 to your wife, or she'll get upset and hide your wedding shoes where you can't find them."
The groom outside, Michael Johnson, didn't know what was happening inside, but he knew the phone wasn't his wife's. Without hesitation, he transferred $10,000 to me.
You wanted 8888, here's 10,000. Can you open the door now?
Tom Davis didn't hesitate this time. He pushed aside the woman squatting by the door and opened it. As soon as the groom came in, she had no room to cause trouble. Because of her antics, many of the planned games couldn't be played, which left me feeling a bit frustrated.
All right, everyone, let's keep things on schedule.
David Carter, the master of ceremonies, was trying to keep things on track. Ryan Wilson carried me out in a rush. Even the tea ceremony for my parents was done hastily. While everyone was trying to keep up with the schedule, Susan Miller came out to cause trouble again. The tension was palpable as Jason finally opened the bedroom door and walked out. I was seething with rage and needed an outlet, so I called my best friend, Samantha Adams.
Let's go out for dinner, and you can tell me everything. I'll deal with Jason and his mother later.
Samantha, a fierce lawyer, was ready to storm into my house and confront Jason and his mother. If I hadn't stopped her, she might have torn the place apart. We stayed out until midnight, talking and laughing to distract ourselves. But when I returned home, the house was dark and silent. The kitchen sink was piled with dirty dishes, and an open jar of pickles on the table emitted a foul smell. Frowning, I went to get my pajamas, only to find the bedroom door locked. Jason. I knocked on the door. There was no response, as if no one heard me. When I knocked a second time, the door to the guest room opened.
Are you trying to wake the dead? It's the middle of the night.
Before I could react, she slapped me across the face. She then slammed the door shut with a loud bang. By the time I tried to follow, she had locked it. In the home Jason and I shared, I was left outside, locked in the living room. Seeing that Ryan Wilson had no intention of paying, the woman lay down under the car and started making a scene.
In our place, girls get money when they get in the car. You think you can leave without paying? No way.
She wailed as if she were my closest relative. Luckily, Mary Gray sensed something was wrong and came over. Seeing the woman on the ground, her face turned dark.
Jennifer Brown, what are you doing?
Seeing my mom, the woman squinted her eyes and then turned to say,
I'm just asking for the wedding money for Sophie, who knew the groom's side wouldn't want to pay. Isn't that looking down on us?
By now, passers-by had started filming, and it could easily be misinterpreted online. I wanted to get out of the car and give her a piece of my mind, but fortunately, my mom wisely pulled her up from the ground.
Jennifer Brown, you must be confused. The wedding money was already given to me along with the bride price. Did you forget? Alice, quickly. Go call Jennifer's husband over. It's almost time to eat, and we need to thank her for her efforts in planning for my daughter.
My mom emphasized the word planning heavily. I guessed that if it weren't my wedding day, she would have slapped her right then and there. Hearing the word husband, Jennifer jumped up from the ground and stopped blocking the car, waving her hand with a smile.
No need to call him. Since you've already received the money, it's none of my business. Come on, John Smith, let's go.
She patted the car as if she hadn't just been lying on the ground making a scene. John Smith, seeing her leave, didn't hesitate for a second and drove off quickly. We arrived at the groom's house a bit late, but fortunately, we didn't miss the auspicious time. I later heard from my cousin about what happened with that relative. The atmosphere was thick with tension as Jason opened the bedroom door and walked out, his face devoid of emotion.
Jason, explain yourself.
Furious, I called my best friend, Samantha Adams, a fierce lawyer known for her tenacity. Over dinner, I vented my frustrations.
Do you want me to storm into your house and confront Jason and his mother? I can't stand how they treat you.
I had to calm her down, or she might have indeed torn the place apart. We stayed out until midnight, and when I returned home, the house was eerily dark. The kitchen sink was piled with dirty dishes, and an open jar of pickles on the table emitted a foul smell. Frowning, I went to get my pajamas, only to find the bedroom door locked. Jason. Narrator knocked on the door, but there was no response. When I knocked a second time, the door to the guest room opened.
Are you trying to wake the dead? It's the middle of the night.
Before I could react, she slapped me across the face and slammed the door shut with a loud bang. By the time I tried to follow, she had locked it. In the home Jason and I shared, I was left outside, locked in the living room. I am the only daughter in my family, and my husband is also an only child. We have a bit of local fame and some money. So, when we got married, my grandfather hosted a grand banquet and feast, which even made it into the local newspaper. Rachel Johnson stayed after lunch, insisting on hanging around for the 3-day return visit, saying she wanted to join in the fun. Although everyone found her annoying, no one said anything.
Is this boy's family really that rich? Why were they so stingy when I asked for money?
Rachel's behavior had already spread among friends and family. Although no one wanted to talk to her, out of politeness and good manners, someone still said.
Of course, not only are they rich, but he's also an only child. They say he studied abroad and is quite handsome.
The relative originally intended to praise my husband to make Rachel feel ashamed, but she seemed lost in thought and didn't respond. The 3-day return visit is a significant event for the bride. I wore a red dress and returned home with my husband. This banquet was even more grand than our wedding, with more guests attending. My grandfather even arranged for a runway and invited a famous comedian to perform, making the atmosphere lively and joyous. But then, a piercing noise came from the stage speakers, followed by a loud voice that hit everyone's eardrums. Even I couldn't help but cover my ears.
Aunt, what are you doing?
Kid, listen to your aunt. Sophie Davis is no good. She may look pretty, but she's promiscuous. She dated 7 or 8 boyfriends before you. She's notorious.
The once noisy hall fell silent, and everyone was stunned.
I respect you as an elder, so I'm listening to you, but if you keep talking nonsense, I'll slap you.
You think Aunt would lie to you?
What do you mean by this? You sneaked into the control room to say something to me, and it's just a slander, Sophie?
Actually, I thought Rachel was just making things up. Anyone who did a little digging would know that my husband and I had been together since high school, went abroad to study together, and had never been apart. My husband wouldn't believe a word of her slander. I guessed that the microphone broadcast was my husband's doing, intending to embarrass Rachel.
Let me tell you, Aunt has a daughter. She may not be as pretty as Sophie, but she's honest and filial. Most importantly, she's never had a boyfriend. Your family is rich, and you value that, right? Let me tell you, Aunt's daughter is still a virgin.
I listened with great interest. Although she was talking about me, I just found it amusing. But my mom couldn't sit still. She rushed to the control room like a firecracker. She couldn't stand anyone bad-mouthing me, and now this woman was spouting nonsense. There was no way she could hold back.
You know I'm already married, right?
So what? Marriage can end in divorce. Aunt understands. You rich people like to use marriage as a bargaining chip. If you get divorced and lose a lot of money, my daughter can be your mistress. But my daughter won't follow you for nothing. It has to be at least this much.
I didn't know how much Rachel was asking for, but from my husband's mocking smile, I could tell it was a significant amount.
And let me tell you, their family can't have sons. Otherwise, why would such a big family fortune be inherited by just Sophie? Our family is different. I have a son, and my daughter can definitely give you a big, healthy boy.
Before she could finish, I heard my mom shout,
Rachel.
Then there was a series of loud noises, and Rachel's wails filled the air. Hearing her cries, I couldn't help but rub my arm. It sounded painful. The microphone cut off abruptly. It was indeed my husband's doing. About 10 minutes later, my mom dragged Rachel out by her hair. Her husband stood outside the door, watching Rachel get beaten without intervening. When Rachel came out, he was furious and kicked her in the stomach.
What are you doing? I shouldn't have brought you here. You're embarrassing me.
He then bowed and apologized to my mom. My mom didn't even give him a glance. She was too angry to speak. Not being able to have a son was a lifelong pain for her, and now it was brought up in front of so many people. Beating Rachel was letting her off easy. Rachel Johnson was being dragged away by Peter Johnson, and I could faintly hear her protesting.
What are you doing? Don't you want to be the father-in-law of a wealthy family? Stop pulling, it hurts.
Rachel's cries of pain gradually faded until they were no longer audible. The sudden commotion felt like a farce. Surprisingly, it seemed to energize the crowd. The atmosphere became lively again, with even some relatives going on stage to perform.
That woman is just foolish. I heard she went through several procedures to have a son, finally succeeding last year.
People often think that wealthy families value male heirs the most. In reality, they care more about their children's education. As for lineage, it's not that important. They can always have 2 children, one with the father's surname and one with the mother's.
Don't be fooled by Peter Johnson's friendly demeanor. His first wife is well known. Just look at Rachel's demeanor. You can tell she's been through a lot at home.
What is she after? Does she really think Sophie's husband would be interested in her daughter?
Who knows? I've seen her daughter, she's just like her mother. She might even crush the groom during the ceremony, haha.
Everyone laughed ambiguously. I felt a mix of emotions. I wasn't exactly angry, it wasn't worth getting upset over someone so clueless. But I couldn't help feeling a bit annoyed, especially since my big day had been disrupted.
Are you upset? Do you want me to handle it for you?
I thought of Rachel being dragged away, unable to fight back. I waved my hand. Forget it. She's already been dealt with. No need to waste time and energy on this. I touched my belly and blinked. Seeing my gesture, James's expression changed, and he quickly broke into a wide grin. This incident was just a small hiccup in my otherwise perfect marriage. I didn't dwell on it, but Rachel seemed unwilling to let it go.
Jason, explain yourself.
Jason opened the bedroom door and walked out. Furious, I called my best friend, Samantha Adams, and we went out for dinner, where I vented my frustrations.
Do you want me to go to your house and give Jason and his mother a piece of my mind?
If I hadn't stopped her, she might have torn the place apart.
He stayed out until midnight, and when I returned home, the house was dark. The kitchen sink was piled with dirty dishes, and an open jar of pickles on the table emitted a foul smell. Frowning, I went to get my pajamas, only to find the bedroom door locked.
Jason! I knocked on the door. There was no response, as if no one heard me.
When I knocked a second time, the door to the guest room opened. Jason's mother came out, annoyed, and slapped me across the face.
Are you trying to wake the dead? It's the middle of the night.
Before I could react, she slammed the door shut with a loud bang. By the time I tried to follow, she had locked it. In the home Jason and I shared, I was left outside, locked in the living room.
Jason, explain yourself. I shouted as Jason emerged from the bedroom.
What's all the yelling about?
Furious, I grabbed my phone and called Samantha Adams, my best friend. We decided to head out for dinner. Samantha, a fierce lawyer, was ready to come over and confront Jason and his mother.
If you hadn't stopped me, I would have torn the place apart.
We stayed out until midnight. When I returned home, the house was dark. The kitchen sink was piled with dirty dishes, and an open jar of pickles on the table emitted a foul smell. Frowning, I went to get my pajamas, only to find the bedroom door locked.
Jason! I knocked on the door. No response. I knocked again, louder this time. The door to the guest room opened, revealing Jason's mother, who looked annoyed. Are you trying to wake the dead? It's the middle of the night. She slapped me across the face before slamming the door shut.
By the time I tried to follow her, she had locked it. I was left outside, locked in the living room of the home Jason and I shared. We stayed out until midnight, and when I returned home, the house was dark. The kitchen sink was piled with dirty dishes, and an open jar of pickles on the table emitted a foul smell. Frowning, I went to get my pajamas, only to find the bedroom door locked.
Jason knocks on the door.
There was no response, as if no one heard me. When I knocked a second time, the door to the guest room opened. Jason's mother came out, annoyed.
Are you trying to wake the dead? It's the middle of the night.
Before I could react, she slapped me across the face and slammed the door shut with a loud bang. By the time I tried to follow, she had locked it. In the home Jason and I shared, I was left outside, locked in the living room.
Jason, explain yourself.
Jason opens the bedroom door and walks out, looking nonchalant. Furious, I call my best friend, Samantha Adams, and we head out for dinner.
What's going on? You sounded really upset on the phone.
Jason's mother is driving me insane. She slapped me when I knocked on the bedroom door. Can you believe that?
She did what? I swear, if you hadn't called me, I'd be at your house right now confronting them both.
I know, Sam. Let's just eat and try to calm down.
Narrator and Samantha stay out until midnight. Upon returning home, the house is dark and the kitchen is a mess.
Great, now the house is a disaster too.
She heads to the bedroom, only to find the door locked.
Jason. Open the door.
There is no response. She knocks again, louder this time. Jason's mother emerges from the guest room annoyed. Are you trying to wake the dad? It's the middle of the night.
I just want to get to my bed.
Go sleep on the couch. She slams the door shut and locks it. Narrator is left standing in the living room, feeling helpless.
In my own home, unbelievable. When Lily Johnson, Rachel Johnson's sister, was brought in by the lobby manager, she was still in a state of confusion.
What's happening? Why am I here?
But as soon as she saw Rachel, her hair stood on end. She knew her sister was up to no good. The day she left, her room key card went missing, and it turned out Rachel had found it.
Lily Johnson, a guest, is now complaining that our hotel violated his privacy. The key card was leaked from your end. On behalf of the company, I am formally terminating your employment contract.
Hearing this, Lily was instantly furious. This was the best-paying 5-star hotel in the area.
Rachel, how could you do this to me?
Lily, enraged, lunged at Rachel, and Emily Johnson, who was standing nearby, tried to intervene but got caught in the scuffle.
Stop it, both of you.
Her spaghetti strap dress was torn to shreds. They fought from inside the room to outside, attracting a crowd of onlookers, many of whom stared at Emily's exposed chest.
Please stop looking.
James Adams stood beside me, trying to explain.
I swear I didn't know anything. When I woke up, she was lying next to me. It scared me so much I almost threw up.
Why didn't you come home after your meeting? Why sleep here? I was actually inclined to believe James, but I was still angry.
It's because of you. You're expecting and can't stand the smell of alcohol. I thought I'd take a shower and sleep at the hotel until the alcohol wore off before coming home. Who knew this would happen? I'm a victim too, you know?
Look at that, he managed to make it sound like he was in the right. This whole situation turned into a farce, and Rachel Johnson's so-called lawsuit was nothing but nonsense. Even if she did sue, I was confident I could make her lose miserably. But it wasn't enough for Rachel Johnson to back off now. I've always been independent since I was young. If she dared to provoke me, she would have to pay the price. I found someone to introduce me to a man named Frank Thompson, a burly chef.
This man is not only divorced but also a mama's boy. His previous wife couldn't stand his overbearing mother-in-law and his tendency to resort to physical altercations, so she filed for divorce. Now, women in the area are afraid to show their faces because Frank Thompson has threatened to beat them up if he sees them.
I paid him a sum of money to pose as a nouveau riche. Frank Thompson's burly appearance made him look quite the part, and when he accidentally met Emily Johnson, he subtly flaunted his wealth. Rachel Johnson and her foolish daughter immediately believed that Frank Thompson was a newly wealthy man from a recent property development. They quickly encouraged Emily Johnson to pursue him.
If we can't snag a highflyer like your husband, at least we can secure a nouveau riche like Frank Thompson.
Rachel Johnson couldn't help but think about Frank Thompson's family situation. He only had an elderly mother and had received several properties from the development. Now he was eager to find a wife. Several properties. Giving a few to her son would be a piece of cake. As for Frank Thompson's elderly mother, Rachel didn't take her seriously. What could an old woman do? Of course, all the information Rachel Johnson knew was what I had arranged for her to hear. In reality, there were no properties, and he was still renting. There was indeed an elderly mother, but how she was would be for Rachel Johnson and her daughter to find out themselves. In just half a month, I received an invitation from Rachel Johnson. The audacity, after everything that happened, she still had the nerve to send an invitation.
Although Sophie Davis lacks proper upbringing and doesn't know how to respect her elders, I won't stoop to her level. My daughter found a wealthy man, and his family owns over a dozen properties. These are real assets, not some fleeting company shares. With so many people going bankrupt these days, Sophie Davis might end up renting from my daughter in the future.
My mother was so infuriated she almost laughed. She picked up the invitation and threw it in Rachel's face.
Looks like I didn't hit you hard enough last time. How dare you say my daughter is ill-mannered? I'll teach you a lesson.
With that, she kicked Rachel in the face with full force. A footprint instantly appeared on Rachel's face, looking utterly ridiculous. Rachel tried to fight back but was quickly thrown out by the security guards. She was used to getting beaten, so she just dusted herself off and left, cursing under her breath.
I heard that on the wedding day, Rachel had to send her daughter off with a shoe print on her face, looking as comical as ever.
After the child was born, I heard from the person who introduced Frank Thompson to me that Rachel and her daughter had become much more subdued. Frank Thompson was not someone to be trifled with. If the mother and daughter caused any trouble, he would slap them hard and, if they still didn't listen, he would use a fire poker on them. His mother didn't stop him, instead, she clapped and cheered him on.
Divorce? Not a chance. Frank Thompson said that if Emily Johnson divorced him, he would take a knife and deal with Rachel's entire family, including her young son.
I don't know if others believed it, but Rachel certainly did. For the sake of her precious son, she gritted her teeth and made Emily Johnson stay with him.
Emily Johnson's current situation is entirely of her own making. If she hadn't insisted on finding a wealthy man, she wouldn't have ended up like this.